James Rosenstein. I'm on the board of One Business World. It's a real pleasure to introduce David Noto, who's the founder and CEO of Altaneve. And he's going to be talking about a subject that will raise a lot of strong interest for sure. Dreaming of getting into the wine industry, how to start a wine company. So David, this is very interesting, and I hand it over to you right now.
Hello, how are you? I'm so glad you can join us today. This is not something that I can cover fully in half an hour, so I will give you broad ideas. I've had a lot of people and spoken to many people. As a Columbia University graduate, I've helped a lot of their graduates and alumni who thought, oh, we want to start a company, what to do? And it's taken hours, years to start companies. So I can't do this in half an hour, but I can get you started. I started my company back in 2011, and I've made a little success out of it. And hopefully, if you're interested in doing the same, I can get you on your way. And you can always reach out to me. My contact information is on the last slide that I'll present. So let me get to a little slide deck. So you want to start a wine company. The idea, it sounds glamorous. It sounds wonderful. The idea of sitting in your vineyards. So you're sitting at your computer screen, you're thinking, I want to do something else. I want to start a wine company. It sounds fantastic. So wonderful, amazing. You want to start a wine company. Sitting in your vineyards, it's glamorous events, being able to tell people I want a wine company. So I wish there was Start a Wine Company for Dummies, that book that helps everyone start every company. Unfortunately, the wine industry is much more difficult than that. Not only for the complexities of the idea itself, but also legal things, especially in the United States. There are many hoops you're going to have to jump through if you want to start a wine company. Maybe we'll start with the originals, the initial ideas. First, why do you want to start a wine company? That'll probably help you to understand the reason, where you go from here. It sounds glamorous, owning a wine company. You have a passion for wine. You have a great niche idea for a wine. I've had people come to me with all three of these reasons and say, how can I get started, David? This is difficult. You've done it. Show me how to do it. Understand what it is. Why? What is the benefit you want of starting a wine company? Just a new challenge, something to do, a hobby, sell wine to a couple of friends you know who have restaurants, etc. First, let me give an assumption out there. The assumption is you don't already own, or your family own, a winery or vineyards. If you do, well, then you have a leg up on many other people. But if you don't, this is more or less the route to market, let's say, you take. And we're also assuming you're launching your wine company in the United States, which is a little more complex in its in the idea than launching it anywhere else in the world. In some countries, you just make it, bottle it, and sell it out of your basement, and that's legal. In other countries like the United States, there's a three-tier system. If you're an importer, if you're selling imported wine, you own an imported wine company, maybe based in Italy, France, South America. And then you have to deal with a three-tier system, which is an importer, a distributor, and then the stores that actually sell to the consumer. So we'll part from those assumptions. So again, what type of wine would you like to make? Where does it come from? Do you want to make an imported wine? Do you want to make a domestic wine? If you make an imported wine, as I said, you have to be the supplier, and then you have to convince an importer to take your wine and then sell it to a distributor. And then the distributor then has to sell your wine to the stores or a restaurant or hotel. If you have a domestic wine, you can actually, if you make it domestically, you can sell it directly to the consumer out of your location where you make it. And that eases a lot of issues. However, if you want to sell it out of state, unless you're selling it through email, telephone, or through social media, let's say, you have to use the three-tier system again: importer, well, not importer, but distributor and store to sell your wine. So it's important to understand what you want to do. And let's get back to start a wine company. What is the idea of a wine company? There are several ways to do this. The easiest way, I would say, is a private label. Find, if you know what kind of wine you want, you go to a company that already makes wine, you say, I like their wine. And they let you put your label on it, and you have a wine. You have wine company wine, you're all set to go. You can, like uncles in the past of mine, in Italy and in the United States, you can purchase grapes from some vineyards, and you can do the winemaking in your basement. You can make the wine yourself in a winery. You can do it in your garage. You can buy all of the paraphernalia to make wine if you have the grapes to do it. Or you can, starting with a much bigger budget, you can purchase a winery or the vineyards themselves, and then purchase a winery, or have from your vineyards another winery make your wine. That's a little easier and a lot more expensive. So let's go into these a little bit more. I talked a little bit about it. Understand a little bit the complexities, I guess, that each of these brings with it. You purchase a private label, you have to find a wine company anywhere in the world that would be willing to make wine for you in the type you want. And you have to understand that the type of wine, the location, the type of wine you want, and then find the company that is a reliable company that consistently makes wine, good wine. They'll work with you on making the wine, payment terms, etc. And then they'll make your wine with your label. For private label to sell the wine in the United States, or for any wine to be made in the United States, you must have an import license or a clearing importer that can help you make the labels, help you not just design the labels, but help you get them registered in the United States. They have to have a very specific writing on the back, indication of origin, importer, a government warning, it contains sulfites, the grape type, etc. So you need someone to do this for you, or you need to get your import license if you are a US citizen. You can all do that, but private label, you get someone else to make it, they put the label on it for you, you're done, you're in, you have a wine. And now, theoretically, if you have an importer and a distributor, you can sell to stores and restaurants. Purchasing grapes, well, that's a little more, it deepens the complexity. Now you find a vineyard that you can purchase the grapes from, and then you have to find someone. I mean, you own a wine company. We figure that a wine company is not just a vineyard. A wine company is a brand of wine. So you purchase the grapes, you have the idea of doing what my uncles and aunts did. My family has been making wine for over 10 generations, my family, with large vineyards and even large type makeshift winery. You can makeshift your own winery in your basement or in your garage, or rent the space, or get a winery to make the wine for you. But you have to find the grapes so that they can make it for you. So this is one step more. You purchase the grapes, and then you make your wine. Understanding that you can't, the grapes can't travel great distances theoretically. You harvest at one time during the year, and then you have to start making the wine almost immediately. So there are places in the United States that will happily sell you wine grapes of every type. And if you want to purchase them from California, you can find a winery in California that'll get them to you and ship them across the country to wherever you want. But this is a little more complex. Then purchase a winery or vineyards. You have to do a lot of research. This is very, very complex and very, very cost heavy, very resource heavy. I wish you the best of luck in this case, especially because purchasing a winery or vineyards are quite difficult. The vineyards themselves, they require a lot of care, and the winery requires 365-day attention. So there's got to be people there figuring it all out for you. Even if you only make wine for 1 month a year, you can't just walk away for the other 11 months. A winery is a full-time job. Let's go forward. You now understand how you're going to get the wine made. You're going to make the wine, label the wine. Another idea is how are you going to market the wine? How are you going to go to market? How are you going to sell your wine? Who's going to sell your wine? How are you going to sell your wine? If you had this idea of, I'm going to make it, they're going to come. If I make great wine, they will buy it. That unfortunately isn't the case. A lot of people, friends of mine, started their wine companies like that and immediately had the glaring realization that it's not like that at all. Sorry to be harsh in that. Again, I will go through a little bit the US system that I touched on. If you make your wine outside of the United States, you have to go through the 3-tier system to get it in the hands of the consumer. I put 2 importers, distributors, store restaurants, and through email and internet because you have to think about that. There is the 3-tier system is importers, distributors, and then retailers, i.e. stores or restaurants. So you can be, as a US citizen, you can be an importer, you can register to be an importer and or a distributor. Each state, to be an importer, it's a federal thing. You apply for a federal import license and you can import with a home in one state. You can import to every state from just one license. To be a distributor, you have to have a distributor's license in each state. That means every state has its own specific laws, but in general, for every state, you need an office, a bonded warehouse, and bonded delivery vehicles to get it there. Whether you hire them or you buy them, every state has to have its own. And restaurants, if you're an importer and or a distributor, or you have an importer and distributor, importers and distributors are not allowed to sell to the public. Suppliers, if you make the wine, you're not allowed to sell to the public directly unless you're a US-based winery. If you're a US-based winery, you have the ability to sell directly to people because your winery license in the United States allows you to do that. So that's a consideration. If you think you want to make Merlot and you want to make it wonderful, you can make Merlot in the United States, of course, in France or in any country, Chile, Argentina, Spain, France, Italy, wherever, anywhere you want in the world. And if you make it in the United States, you can sell directly, you can bypass importers, distributors, and sell directly to stores and directly to clients, to stores in your state and restaurants in your state where you have your winery, and to through the internet or through email or through phone calls, you can sell it to consumers anywhere and ship it to them in the United States. So I don't want to go too deep into this, but you have to think a little bit about who you want to sell to and where and why and how. Owning a wine company could even be owning a store and sell it to consumers, but then you can't own the label. You can't make the wine if you own a store or a restaurant. If you make the wine, you can't sell it to yourself and sell it to the consumer. The truth of a successful wine company. Well, it always depends on four things predominantly. The production, you have to produce good wine. You can produce mediocre wine. It's a little more difficult to sell, but you still have to produce the wine. And you have to produce it in a way that once it's sold, you can replenish it. My company has had a difficult thing. We launched a new wine last year, and it is the best and worst wine that I've ever made before. It sells off the shelves immediately, and I can't make it fast enough. So then it goes out of stock. And restaurants and stores say, well, where's our wine that we were so excited about? And it's a problem. So you really have to figure out the production end of this, and to make enough to grow, and to make enough so it doesn't sit there, because especially white wines, fresh wines, sparkling wines, they go bad after a point in time. Some red wines can last 5, 10, 20 years in a bottle, but most wines go bad. So you don't want to produce too much and then have it go bad on you. Product design. I've done a lot of research on product design. The packaging has to stand out. Go into wine stores, look around if you want to start a wine company. See what the other people have done to make their wine stand out on a shelf. Product design is also important. I've spoken to many clients, friends, read a lot of books. A large majority of the wine purchasers in the United States choose the wine they buy by the look and aspect of the bottle. Make sure that the product design, it's so important, is done well. And then marketing. If no one knows what the wine is, they won't buy it. If it looks great, they might buy it. But generally, the success of a brand is a function of marketing and or price point. It's a function of all of these four things. But you can make it so cheap that no one can pass it up. That's an idea. But marketing is almost always needed in some way, shape, or form. I can tell you many stories. Whispering Angel was sold by some, I hope you've heard of it. It's a fairly famous rosé, sold made in Provence, France, and sold across the United States. They made it their marketing by getting into some very posh places. And the posh people liked it, wanted it, asked for more, and it became an overnight sensation. The other thing you need almost more than anything, is distribution. If you don't have the ability to distribute your wine, meaning salesmen, meaning states that you can sell into, meaning sales channels that you can sell through, it becomes much, much more difficult. And maybe almost lastly, the most important thing you need to start a wine company is financing. Every one of the things we've covered is financing. Is really covered by how much money, a factor of how much money do you have to spend, whether you're private labeling, marketing, distribution. I talked about the three-tier system. The three-tier system, you can get clearing importers, clearing distributors, and you can hire salespeople to sell your product. But how successful any of that is depends on how much money you're ready to spend. Even a little outfit that you make in your garage, you can do that. That's great. Wonderful hobby, highly recommended. But if you're going to sell it, you really need the financing to make it happen. I can talk a little bit for a few minutes, about what I did, my choices, whether they be correct or not. I had this wonderful idea. I will go back to another slide I had. I was sitting in corporate America in front of my office. Before I tell you my story, are there any questions that I can answer by any chance? I'd be happy to answer anyone's questions. So please, please reach out if you have any questions. So I'm going to keep an eye on the Q&A, but in general, I'm going to tell you about a little bit about my story. Whoop. Okay, let's see. I was sitting at my desk working for a finance company in Manhattan and thinking, I really want something more meaningful, purposeful in my life. I want to start a wine company. I think it sounds fantastic. I'm going to do this. I can really do this. My family made wine for over 10 generations. I love wine. I know about wine. I have a vague idea how to make wine. It sounds glamorous. I want to make wine. And I was working in the United States at the time. I was working in New York. So I went back to Italy. And I decided the wine I want to make is Prosecco. That's my favorite wine. Since I moved back from Italy to the United States, I decided, that's my favorite wine. I would smuggle bottles in to have friends try them, and everyone loved Prosecco, but great Prosecco wasn't available. I'm going to make wine. So I went around. I wish that was sounded glamorous. I have a passion for wine. I had a great niche idea. I'm going to make great Prosecco that's not available in the United States. It's going to be an imported wine. I can do any of the ability. I could do any of I saved some money. I can theoretically do any one of these three things. So I went to Italy. I researched the vineyards, the winemaking, the winemakers, the agronomists, and everything I could do. And I said, you know what I'm going to do? Initially, I'm going to find a winemaker that can make me wine. So the very first wine we made was a private label because it was the easiest way to go. It was the cheapest. I figured I was going to make a hobby, do a hobby, do a little wine on the side. I've got a lot of friends. They love wine too. I'm going to sell a lot of wine. And then once you get into the thick of it, things change. The private label, the reason you start with a wine company or private label sounds good. And then for me, about a year after I started, when I decided I'm going to make a life of this, the winemaker I used left. And the gentleman I relied on implicitly left. And all of a sudden, I had to figure it out differently. Then I realized I have to have more control of this if I'm going to dedicate my life. And so millions of years later, it feels like I'm here and I have my own wine company and I make wine. I'm hoping that you might have some questions for me. I'm hoping that I can assist any of you that are watching this in real time. I'm hoping that I can give you some insight. If you had the idea, I want to start a wine company, I can probably help you out. I'd be more than happy to answer questions. I'd be more than happy to field questions after this presentation. You can reach out. My wine company is Altaneve, and you can find us online. You can find us on social media. You can find our website, altaneve.com, and I'd be more than happy, like I've done for many, many people, kind of point you in the right direction, and or, as I've done for a few, convince them not to start a wine company or help you along your way. I hope you've enjoyed, and please, if you have, please ask any questions you might have, and I'd be happy to answer them.
Well, David, so interesting. It's such an interesting industry. And I'm not going to start a wine company, but I would like to ask you a couple of questions.
Of course. Be happy.
One is an example. Not too far from where I live, there's a person who opened a store, a wine store, and it's the first time I saw it because he is selling wines from all over the world from small companies, not the big names, which tend to apparently dominate the market. So he's opened this store selling small, less known wines, small companies from so many places, and it's become hugely successful. Is a store like that, I assume, something good for a new producer who's looking for an outlet?
That is definitely a good place for a new producer. However, just as I tried to explain, in the United States, to sell to any store, you have to have an importer and a distributor.
Yeah.
So you can get people who literally buy your wine in Italy or in France or anywhere, or in the United States, and then they import it, or they put it in a warehouse, and then the distributor sells to that store. So there are many micro-production wineries, micro-production facilities, micro-production wines in essence.
Yeah.
And then it's the distributor that then sells to the store.
Right.
And some distributors focus on micro-production wineries that make 5, 10, 20,000 bottles a year.
Okay, there's a question here now.
Yeah.
For domestic
wine, where
Yeah.
should someone go to buy a vineyard? Well,
Right.
it depends where you are. There are some wonderful vineyards, beautiful vineyards in, for instance, Virginia, New York, New York upstate, Hudson Valley, New York. My company is based out of northeastern Italy by my vineyards, which you see behind me, and and in New York City. So there are vineyards on the east end of Long Island in New York by the beaches and upstate, but there are amazing wineries in California, in Oregon. I think those are some of the most famous, but as Italy has shown us, you can make wine in almost every terroir, even in the sand. If you go to Italy, there are over 1 million wineries in Italy, and they make wine on some of the most rugged, what you think is impossible to make vineyards on terroir. The Israelis in Israel, they make wine, they've irrigated a desert and make great, wonderful wine. So anything can be done. If you decide, I want to make wine in my backyard, you can do it. You can really, really do it. So anywhere you can make wine, you can buy a vineyard. I would suggest buying a vineyard to buying a plot of land and trying to grow vines. I would highly recommend that. And taste the wine that comes from this vineyard also.
Yeah.
Vineyards are available for sale almost all over the United States. Think about the wine you want to make. If you want to make Pinot Noir, go to Oregon. Oregon has some spectacular Pinot Noir. But if you want something a little smaller, less closer to home, you can buy a plot in your backyard and plant some vines, and hopefully in 5, 6, 10 years, you'll get grapes out of them.
Okay. Thank you, David, so much. We've unfortunately reached the end here.
Thank you. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for having me. I'm grateful.
Well, many thanks to you. And this is something that certainly has a great future. So thank you so much.
Thanks to all of you. Cheers.
Cheers.